Welcome back, everyone, to LCS Academy. We're still going strong, about to get into game number 3 of the day. But first, if you missed it, real quick, Crumbs, what went down in that last game? How did things end?
Oh, how they ended. Great place to start. It ended with a base race. Immortals had a Baron after picking a few members on the red side of their jungle as TSM was pressing forward. Then with that Baron, you'd wonder, well, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to buy some time, slow the game down, climb their way back? No, they just pushed straight down the mid lane and won because TSM wanted to go for a base race with Twisted Fate and Renekton on the top side, which was answered for, and so the Baron push won the game.
IMT feeling good to pull out a win in a very sparkly fashion. I don't know why sparkly is the word I thought of, just flashy, I guess. But that means that they go 1-1 for the week. As Keith said, it's better to go 1-1 than get the double losses. But we'll be moving on from that one. We're going into our next game, which is Cloud9 Academy versus FlyQuest Academy, which is very exciting considering that Cloud9 Academy have been performing very well while not undefeated like Team Liquid. They do still have a lot of strength to their team, only suffering the single loss against CLG earlier on in the weeks. And then FlyQuest Academy Crumbs have still had some shining moments with a lot of development to be had on this roster.
Yeah, FlyQuest Academies has been slowly holding steady, trying to make their way into the top of the standings, and a win here would definitely buy their ticket to that top because it would put them within one loss of catching up to Cloud9. Really big deal here. So this is a squad that has put a lot of emphasis on Tomio in the bot lane, giving him a lot of gold, but it's not like it's been the entirely bot lane show. I think Triple has been quietly a very strong performer for this team, and meanwhile Kumo has had plenty of moments where he actually does fairly well. I mean, this is not going to be one of them because not everybody gets to survive a Syndra stun and tell the tale, but still the rest of the squad has been doing fairly well, and it makes for an exciting team with multiple members that can pop off, including NXI in the jungle.
And despite picking up that loss in their last game, it was still scrappy for the majority of the early game and definitely showed some promise. I mean, Triple, another one of those OCE pickups that is coming with that Worlds experience to really add that to this roster when you do have other players as well, like NXI, right? We got to see a little bit of him in the LCS when he was making that substitution, and while things didn't necessarily go well for the team there because, I mean, yeah, when it's early and you got roster changes, it's always going to be difficult. But here in FlyQuest Academy has managed to be a powerful point for the rest of the team. Large jungle pool for himself as well that has really made an impact in what they're able to do across and keep that winning record for themselves kind of in the middle of the pack. But they are going against Cloud9 Academy Crumbs, which is at the top of the standings alongside Team Liquid for a reason.
They're at the top of the standings, yet this could just be FlyQuest's hardest week with C9 and 100 Thieves, and so a big part of the Cloud9 mantra has just been playing to each other, just constantly roaming around and trying to help each other out, very team focused, and all the while each member is individually laning really well. You've got Darshan, who's constantly building lanes in or advantages in his lane, the bottom lane, who just gets to constantly get whatever matchups they want and still be very relevant in the team fights. King coming back into the lineup, while Copy just still getting used to the pro scene, but hanging in there with the squad clearly. So this is a team that is scary, not just in the lane, but even outside of it. On top of that, they're innovating a lot. They are the first bot lane in the academy that we had seen with the Seraphine Janna bot lane.
Yeah, and it kind of spread, not that particular duo, but just the whole concept of it spread onto some of the other teams, though Cloud9 has found the most success with it. And it is a really cool roster to look at because you have Darshan, who during his time on Golden Guardians Academy last year was still proving to be kind of that veteran leading voice for them. And now in Cloud9 Academy is having a very similar effect as someone that can bring that through. Known for a lot of the carry top laners that he played even back in the day that have kind of come back into the meta in a very strong way to allow himself to enable the rest of the team in these team fights. But it should be an interesting one when facing off against FlyQuest Academy here. Any lane or any matchup in particular that strikes you most?
I think because Cloud9 is in red side, and since they have been loving to play towards Darshan, I have to put my eyes towards the top lane. If it was blue side, I think the Cloud9 lineup would be more interesting for the bot lane because Darshan would get a matchup that is more blindable, like the Gnar or Camille. But on the red side, I think they usually like to get more value from the counter pick, and so the player that gets more value from that position on this roster is Darshan. So I'm looking at the top lane and looking at Kumo to see what he's got in the blind top lane department to deal with this, because we have seen games last week where Darshan just won level 1 with a gangplank and the game was over. Just how Alfari did Fudge dirty in game 5 of the lock-in finals, Darshan, same move, right? Wins lane level 1 so hard, the game is over from that point. So I think Cloud9 can trust on him as he's delivered before.
And if you're looking to Kumo and how he's going to be standing up to that, I mean, in past seasons, we've seen him where he had worked on like weak side picks and things like that. But then in this season, we're seeing him on a lot of those popular ones. You've got the Renekton and the Gragas and the Gnar that have all been coming through for him and being a very stable force on the side of FlyQuest. But I'm also looking over towards this bot lane where we have seen some of that experimentation come through the Seraphine, and it's been banned out all day today. I don't know how much of that we'll actually see come through, if at all, when it comes to the composition. Come on, you don't want a bunch of Moonstone renewers and just triple enchanters and come in and healing everybody out for days and days and days.
It's just how they look. I just don't like how they look. I want champions that don't look like they sing. All right, is that too much? Can I just have a champion that doesn't sing? That's just someone that just battle. All right, like Seth doesn't sing. He's simple. He sings, like stuff like that. Every champion has to have dance moves now and tight pants. So let's just get a little more diversity in the champion pool.
Yo, Akali is back there. KDA Akali staring you down. Kind of mad about that. I guess she raps more than sings, so maybe she's okay with that, wanting to go a bit more towards the hip hop side. But I feel you, especially, I mean, when you're thinking about the champs and the way they operate in the game too, and the fact that a lot of it is running off of things like Moonstone Renewer and the Staff of Flowing Water, which while there was a hit to staff during this patch, it feels like it hasn't necessarily shaken the boat too much in terms of the builds that people are bringing to the table. And you're just looking and you see everybody get topped up in their HP and you think, all right, that wasn't necessarily as fun to watch as somebody going through and completely engaging and just jumping onto their backline, but it has proved effective.
Yeah, it's not the most thrilling, especially because it's not visibly obvious to know who's healing what, but the nerf to it is we're still not really sure because there wasn't many people trying it, so you even don't have a big sample size as to how strong it was, let alone how weak the nerf or over-tuned the nerf was as well. So it'll be a while for us to know how strong the Moonstone thing is, because a lot of people have been trying really funky things with it. I think we really have not seen the extent of what the builds this season can do. I mean, I'm hearing things like Brand with Moonstone Renewer. So you think about in the support role, you think about Lily, a champion that has that dot passive with all the healing. So all I'm saying is that there's a lot more tricks to be experimented with the builds before we deem the meta figured out.
And that's why you gotta love what some of the players bring through. I mean, was it last week that we saw Power of Evil giving the Imperial Mandate Azir a try because of the effect that you can get off things like the slow on his Qs? So I love to see the experimentation across the board. And speaking of which, as we will be diving into Champ Select for these teams soon, Cloud9, for instance, have noted that they have been trying a lot of different compositions. Obviously, we noted the Moonstone Renewer, but Surenfire in one of his post-game interviews, I think, was talking about how they did want to get to a place of more, not necessarily being able to specialize where it puts them into a box, but get really nuanced with the way they approach a couple of the compositions that can become more and more important as you get into that playoff territory when you really want to be able to rely upon some of those set pieces. But let's go ahead and find out what pieces are brought to the table in the Champ Select for our third game of the day. FlyQuest Academy facing off against Cloud9 Academy, and immediately a little bit of a shakeup in what's being brought off into the banning phase, with TF being the first to go.
Yeah, I like the TF ban. Copy's been playing it. It works well with the potential red side focus that C9 might have here. Sorry, a top side focus with Darshan in the counter pick. And on the C9 side, banning Thresh does affect Tomo as well, since FLYA has been really liking the Aphelios. You don't want to ban Aphelios out because it might be too specific, but you ban out the Thresh. So if Aphelios is going to be picked, he won't have that Lantern to bail him out. And you can also hit other compositions that FlyQuest might be going after. So I'm liking these bans out of Cloud9, already trying to keep them very generic and not painting themselves into a corner that will give FlyQuest their best champions.
That is one of the questions with FlyQuest. What can they do if the Aphelios isn't there? Their strongest performances have been coming when Tomo is on that pick. It's favored by a lot of the players across the board in professional play just because of the versatility and the safety with some of the utility that you offer, depending on which gun you have, the range to be able to poke. So having that safety and have that late game threat has been proving very effective just to have some consistency in those wins. And it's still been left up as a pick that could potentially come to the table here in this match. But we are on to the first lock in, and what do you know? It might be some slapping around from the bear that we see.
It wouldn't surprise me there at first pick Udyr. It's not bad, right? It got nerfed, but it's not the end of the world for him. It's just a little bit of damage on the initial activation, so won't be power clearing nearly as fast, but immediately Cloud9 saying, all right, well, we're going to have a ton of crowd control, pick off the bear, and a very difficult champion for Udyr to gank that also makes for a crazy strong team fight and enough damage to actually kill the bear if we catch him. So Udyr gets picked, and already two champions that he doesn't feel thrilled about seeing on the enemy team.
Yeah, very quick lock-in of the Azir and the Rel. I mean, a lot of consistency that comes out of Azir in mid-game, some objective security, and Rel, someone that does have engage, but usually does prefer kind of being a secondary engage or saving certain things for when that engage happens so that you can get everybody out safely by applying that stun. And with Azir locked in here, FlyQuest Academy bringing the Victor out to play and already trying to get some engage of their own, and it's the Rakan that they end up locking first.
Yeah, okay, Rakan setting themselves up to take Xayah if they want it, since there's still plenty of ADs available there, and Victor a response to the Azir, so they're trying to hide all their picks as best they can, trying to make sure that they don't give Cloud9 more opportunities to counter, which I really respect here. They will lock away that Olaf has not found success today, but it's a fine matchup into the Olaf. It can power farm as well, and I think it's a bit more useful than a pick like Mundo that we are seeing start to come up with some of the kind of bruisey champions that run at you that have not been nerfed, that are still relevant in the meta, but teams are still having a hard time really fitting these picks in versus someone like an Olaf that is a lot easier to play around, that can just ult and follow through and doesn't need help in the early game.
It's so crazy. A lot of these picks have just been influenced by a lot of the itemization that has become popular, right? With Turbo Chem Tank coming through, and then you see things like the Azir gaining popularity, as well as a lot of other kind of run-at-you champions that can be extremely viable at this point. The Gangplank is banned away here, too. Camille's also just been a consistent take off the table, known to be extremely strong in all regards, but then comboing very well with other popular picks like the Galio. So take that off. Cloud9 Academy see the Rakan. They answer by taking away the Xayah. Xayah is one of the picks that Tomo has already played. And FlyQuest Academy, I'm sure they anticipated the possibility of something like that coming, being that he still has other strong picks available to him.
Yeah, you definitely still have a wealth of options here, as even when we have seen ADs get pinched right now, as people have been thinking, how deep is the AD champion pool right now? Well, they bust out picks like Sivir, Ezreal's that are still viable right now when you start to ban out all the champions like the Kaisas and the Xayahs. So Misfortune gets locked up, makes the team fight that much stronger, and now FlyQuest needs to think about, well, how do they handle dealing with C9, who has a ton of wombo, very, very high burst, and there's only a single member that can engage right now on the side of FlyQuest. If they lock in this Aphelios, you're taking care of the damage department. Even if you have the Aatrox, you already have, I think, enough damage. You just have to worry about, well, how do you actually survive the initial engage and get to deal that damage? Because, yeah, Udyr can live it, but nobody else thus far can survive that.
In FlyQuest Academy, with their last lock-ins here, they had spent a few bans over on that top side, and now with that pick being saved for Darshan, they want to have something comfortable that they can go into with a little bit of a level of control to feel safe in that matchup. It's not the Aphelios that is going to be brought through, it is the Jhin in this case.
I like it. I like Jhin a lot here because I'm thinking, well, how do you survive the dive? Well, get really far back. Jhin is that answer to that. You can be really far away, can help everybody else out with the setup. So, well, Udyr flash bear stun somebody, now gets comboed into a deadly flourish, and that can really be something that catches C9A off guard. And even a pick like Olaf, and whoa, okay. Darshan with the top Vayne. I was saying how red side on Cloud9, they'll use it for top side, but this is not what I had in mind.
Yeah, Vayne coming into the top side. I think we've seen a little bit of Vayne in Academy, but in the ADC position, not very common up here top. The limited range that she has that can sometime fare poorly against other marksmen, not as much felt when you do bring her up here so that she can get some of that picking and scaling into a late game threat here. Crumbs, I mean, we've seen Darshan on a lot of carry picks, but they have been a bit more in tradition with what we have seen in the top lane recently.
Yeah, the carry picks can usually team fight. They have a Gangplank ultimate to help out. They have something to join the team. This is pure lane kingdom and also being able to deal with Udyr. So maybe they've had one too many games that have been frustrating against Udyr, and Vayne will be the definite end to his shenanigans in turtle stance.
Well, all my eyes are going to be on Darshan to see what can you do, boy, with this Vayne pick. It's going to be so much fun to see, considering how he's been performing thus far. But it is time, everybody. FlyQuest Academy facing off against Cloud9 Academy. Cloud9 only one loss to their name from CLG earlier on in the season, and FlyQuest, despite taking a recent loss, have still been in a formidable standing here in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, and now Cloud9, they'll take an advantage of Vayne with Olaf to go in level 1 into this lane. Let's see what Kumo has gone for his rune choice. I like this out of him. He knows how brutal this lane is going to be. Oh, Darshan. Whoa, Darshan.
Oh, Darshan. A bit deep here, tumbles out, but that's all the mobility that you have right now since he wants to save the flash. Surenfire is here to try to make sure that he can, but yeah, eventually they're just a little too speedy. You're not going to be able to get away from that one. Surenfire also going to have to flash because of the way he positioned himself into that pit.
Fat wins there from FlyQuest. Heads up plays out of the bot lane, knowing that, hey, we can catch these guys off, and Cloud9 was just way too bold there. When the Aatrox was running back, they should have known, okay, FlyQuest will respond to this. It's not like they're just going to let us walk into the face of the enemy, get a ward down, and them not do anything about it. So this will help Kumo a ton in this lane now. Vayne cannot be nearly as aggressive as she was before. In fact, burn the teleport just to be back in the lane. So this is going to be a very happy lane for the Aatrox, and it can even be a place where NXI can gank with the very early danger that is Udyr.
Some early harass here down in the bot lane. I mean, both Dreams and Isles on these engaged supports, and it looks like they want to try and get as little HP as possible onto the enemies. Isles even goes all the way back with the crash down, but luckily has pots and different ways to sustain to try and just come out of this trade favorably here, as both are positioning themselves to scale into the late.
Okay, and so Azir does a really nice thing here, checking the Raptor camp to make sure that they know what Udyr is up to, helping their lanes out, and that's the kind of stuff you want to see out of your mid lane. When they start warding and giving information when the jungler is not able to, then it really helps maintain the tracking on the enemy for that much longer, because now you know, well, since Udyr wasn't in the Raptors then, he'll probably be there now since he started on the blue side. So with the information copy got, they should know that Udyr is in the bot side, and so Olaf will know if he needs to go for a counter gank or continue to go straight for the farm. It even tells Rel that she can ward up in the Tribrush, and it'll help her as the pings go out now that she was there.
And it definitely gives Darshan a bit of intel so that he can farm here safely. As we mentioned, having those flashes down on the top laner and the jungler on the side of C9 put a lot of vulnerability for their red side to be open to NXI to try and make plays, but getting that intel on who was down bot allows Darshan to continue to farm here, as he does want to make this a lane kingdom as much as possible. NXI is coming back from the base, and Surenfire, on the other hand, is here in the mid lane, applying a bit of pressure to Triple as he attempts to farm.
We could get a fight between the junglers here and bot.
Yeah, Dreams hops in. There's the exhaust onto King, but he still continues to get some autos down onto Tomo, who is low. The root onto Isles. Dreams here for a little bit of a slap in the follow-up knockup. And Tomo just focusing on trying to get that clear with the bouncing bullets so it can get that hit onto Isles, now forced to pop even more potions and use the lot to sustain here to keep himself alive in this trade.
Oh, they can kill Olaf. He has no flash.
Oh, Olaf, no flash. Surenfire, you're in a vulnerable place, my friend. Doesn't matter how much survivability you have. Darshan tries to come through, and then NXI does flash over onto the side of the river towards the lane to keep himself safe. And Darshan nowhere to go as a Vayne. No flash available to him either. Another swing should do it. They are going to take some of this tower. There you go. Final hit from NXI. 2 kills onto the Udyr for FlyQuest Academy. A surmountable, or a mounting lead, rather, for the jungler.
And a mounting lead for FlyQuest. If I'm C9, I'm starting to sweat some bullets. This Vayne lane is just going as terribly as you expect Vayne lanes to go. No teleports, losing out CS, down in gold. Now there's plated steel caps in Udyr and Aatrox, so the 2v2 is already over. Forget about winning this one, even though you have the true damage. And the bot lane also gets to be shoved in. Everybody's farming equally, so FlyQuest will now have a strength where Cloud9 committed resources in the draft. That is a big deal for Kumo and NXI to just run over this game, because if they can continue to punish this Vayne, that is just a place where you can tower dive after tower dive and there is nothing she can do about it.
That is the thing. I mean, we get excited about seeing the Vayne locked in and the potential that it can have within the laning phase, but it is a very telegraphed win condition on the side of Cloud9 Academy. And FlyQuest, especially with those earlier finds that they had in the jungle just even initially on the setup to get those flashes, have been a great way for them to try and counter that as early as possible before it can even get online. You notice that the bot laners on both sides are trying their best to be aggressive with their trades and farm. Some poke going on to copy here as Dreams has gotten to that rotating place. And that's another thing that you have to consider with these supports. They are the kind that do like to roam and try and affect these other lanes when giving the opportunity. So if top ends up getting cared for, we could see a lot of action down here on the bot mid side.
Always cross map plays. Here they go after Jhin. 3-on-3.
Oh, and even the make it rain to get the slow. Here's Olaf coming in for the oh my gosh, King getting the kill onto Tomo. The pursuit continues and Dreams falls as well. The TP down into the back. Can Kumo end up sandwiching him? That gets the knockup onto 2 of you. That's a lot of damage onto Isles and King. King, you are going to be demoted to Prince in this case. Surenfire also getting the douse of his flames as Kumo is still in pursuit alongside NXI, and that is a triple kill for Udyr. 5-0 for the jungler for FlyQuest. This is a lead that they are continuing to tack on.
What was I saying? The top 2v2 can run over this game, and the teleport from Kumo is clutch. Ready to help the team out. Udyr was right there too, and so everybody flashing from Cloud9 to kill Tomo ends up being just a one-way ticket for them. They're not able to survive when Kumo commits for that, and when you pop the ultimate, you knew they were in trouble. Aatrox TP, they're like, oh, okay, maybe we can go. Maybe we can walk out. Pops the ultimate, starts queuing towards them. Ugh. That's when they realized they had no way out of that one. And all the while, Triple is actually gaining pressure in the mid lane as he made the Azir recall with that ultimate. So winning top, winning bottom, and pushing the mid lane out, all is well in the FlyQuest camp.
NXI and Kumo with 100% kill participation between the plays that they made in top and that teleport down bot. So they're both getting a lot stronger as time goes on to work closer and closer to building towards those mythics. Like you said, Triple was still applying some pressure down in the mid lane too. So even if things just end up even in the mid lane capacity for FlyQuest Academy, they are able to just have such an effect on other portions of this game. So FlyQuest feeling pretty good about it. But Cloud9's not a team that you can count out of this as well. We have seen a couple of their games recently where things were tighter in the early game, but some of their strength comes from their ability to play through that mid game, have those veteran voices can take over and make sure that they have a plan of action whenever they do fall behind.
Not just the team, but the champions they're currently piloting, because Vayne, yeah, she can run it down, she can fall behind, but if she has farm, she will still kill your tanks when they're diving. That is the value of the Vayne. She's a very good tank killer. I think she would not have been chosen if you were up against Aatrox and Udyr. So Cloud9 also have the Azir to pair with, as well as the MF team fight. So FlyQuest need to be very careful managing this, because the two champions that have the gold lead are also champions that need to run straight at you, and that is a position that often gets players killed from misunderstanding how much damage they can survive, or too many members of the enemy team there being clumped up at the same time. So FlyQuest needs to know that these champions are very fragile with these advantages, but if they can slowly but surely build those gold leads and not die, not give away those bounties, then they can reach those points where they can just flash in and 1v2, 1v3, and run away and survive these ganks like we see Kuma do just now.
Trade-off in the attention paid by the junglers in this case. I mean, NXI spent some time down there in the bot lane so that they could push that up, and then even after the warding had happened from Copy, then the blue side could rotate effectively into the jungle to secure that first Drake, it being a Cloud Drake for them. Meanwhile, they knew that Surenfire was spending his time in top, and while there was nothing that was gained from it in terms of getting a kill onto Kumo, they just wanted to try to alleviate some of that pressure and not let this ramp too much out of control. So still definitely win conditions on both sides, as you were saying, Crumbs, for these teams.
And now the Rift Herald, it's got the eyes of FlyQuest on it, as they know that this is the win con to accelerate the lead. If they can use this to get one of these turrets and start rotating over, it'll be really good, but they don't know that Isles is here.
Oh, and there's the engage, the Empress Divide to try and push back the members of FlyQuest, and Triple is the one that is sacrificed as a result. Cloud9 Academy gain the kill onto the mid laner, which allow them to rotate over here towards this Herald to secure the objective. Dreams and NXI are nearby, and Kumo is starting to make his rotation from the top side, but in the end, you have to be careful of where you find these follow-up engages.
It's always so dangerous when it's so quiet. Nobody's in the lane. No one's been last hitting for a while. Only a few members on the map. You have to imagine when these moments happen that somebody's lurking in a brush. But we're going to take a look at Copy. Great scoop there. They didn't suspect it at all. They had no idea this was happening. They just saw him flying in and thought, oh, look, Azir's going in. I wonder what he's doing now. Okay, I see why he did that.
And now after the dust has settled a little bit, we see why. FlyQuest do manage to get this objective secured, so that's going to be a Rift Herald that will eventually be dropped down in favor of FlyQuest. 11 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock still mean that some plates can be taken on one side or the other, as the gold lead is 1K in the favor of FlyQuest Academy here in the bot lane, going to be rotating back down towards a bot on the side of Fly.
Okay, now bot lane prio here. It's just a matter of trying to get this Rift Herald gold into the hands of the Jhin. Jhin could use it for sure. I think Victor is going to be reliably farming for most of the game, despite being relatively even with Copy. His wave clear duties are never going to be absolved, so he'll always be getting quick farm. So giving more gold over to the Jhin is not a bad idea, because Jhin can be surprisingly good at killing a champion like Olaf. That fourth shot, he gets lower in HP. He also has less resistances when he pops the ultimate. So there is a world where Tomo getting enough gold can make Surenfire's life a living hell, especially when you combine the burst that Triple can have on top of it.
That is something that you have to be careful of because Jhin, I mean, when we started the season, Jhin was one of the most talked about ADCs because of the fact that he had such viability with a lot of the new itemization, the Gale Force, as well as Collector to kind of finish off where some of his weaknesses are. But as ones like Kai'Sa and things coming into the meta a bit more, we haven't seen him as much, but he still does offer a lot of that strength to finish off those execute when he gets things online. Obviously not to it at this point in the game as he still has some building to do, but is somebody that can lock them down and for the victor to be able to follow up in those scenarios. So you got to keep your eyes on a lot of these champions that poise themselves for the later portion of the game. NXI now finally making a play with this Rift Herald that he had recently acquired to get some of these plates off on the top lane, also making sure to push it with the wave alongside Kumo so that they can attempt to get a complete turret takedown in this regard. Darshan, not anything that he can do about it at this point.
Last place for the Rift Herald's options with the 14-minute plate timer already coming to a start. So giving gold over to Kumo will help the diving buddy that NXI has been paired up with thus far this game. And if the Aatrox can be a really big threat, that will make NXI's job that much easier. So he won't be the only one that is focused. And that's usually the formula that's worked really well with these bruising champions. It's either having support champions that help you out, that are enchanters like Seraphine or the Lulu, or having somebody else to do it with you so that you can have flanks and, more importantly, not be immediately focused down, because you'd hate the compositions where it's a single diving bruiser and then the exhaust just ruins the party, or they just get focused down in another way and then they're not able to get the job done. But here, with Kumo and NXI being the diving partners, on top of Dreams and the support of Triple and Tomo, the fact that the gold is in the front line can be really positive for FlyQuest.
That's something that you really have to think about when we get into that team fighting territory. Who's going to be right there in the front to get that lockdown? Who is there safely in the back for that follow-up? This is a second Drake over for FlyQuest Academy, securing it. So this means that it is a Mountain Soul that will be coming through eventually in the future.
Okay, I mean, it's not like it's gonna do much this game. I think the Mountain Soul, more than anything, it's the terrain, the vision that it now blocks, the way that it alters warding is what affects it. These champions really won't be affected. If you want one that would be crazy, it's like, oh, well, I guess Darshan might have more avenues to condemn, but its abilities like Azir's Shuffles or Rakan's abilities to hop over walls, that can be really powerful with the map having the new terrain. That's now the enemy might not be able to see all the angles where the enemy can come out of.
All right, so, I mean, we saw a lot of skirmishes earlier on in the game when those initial kills went down. Since there, it's definitely been a lot more of a tranquil rift between these two as they try to get their farming up and get these mythics online. You can see on the side of Copy, he has worked into that Landry's. We've got some of that sustain that is building into the items over on Cloud9 to keep themselves into these fights more effectively. And then Darshan, there's only so much that he can do to farm safely right now since that top turret was taken, and has to be very careful with the rotations of any of the potential junglers. Luckily for him, NXI right now has just been kind of on a clearing path, trying to get himself as strong as possible for when any of these encounters do come out. And Surefire positioned to try to go in here on Kumo, but nobody else is here. It's just to be able to really poke him off as much as possible.
Vayne can never set him up. It's not a Blade Vayne. There's no CC here, so he just gets to run away. And King, meanwhile, is hoping that he doesn't get dove, but look at Udyr. Just running straight at him.
Slap him. There's the stun. There's Dreams in the back. So you open up with the curtain call, you get as much damage as you possibly can onto King, but even if he escapes, NXI and Dreams are here to say something about it. Isles, he is also just going and hanging out in the mid lane, not down their bot to be able to assistant anyway. When his ADC goes down, he is just at that roaming territory at this point. So that's going to be another pick going over to FlyQuest, which allows them to collapse upon this turret. King had used his ultimate prior to clear the waves as much as possible, and FlyQuest securing another objective for themselves.
Yeah, overextended on the side of King. I know it's silly to see him there and think, are you actually overextended? The enemy team is like at the blue, but barely actually close to you. But yeah, the Rakan and Udyr have an inside track, and they were making plays on the top side of the map. So Kumo was in a similar position to where King was at. It's just that one is really fast and fed, and not having to deal with the very fast and fed bear.
Bears, you would usually think, if they eat more, maybe they'll slow down a little too much, get a little too comfy, a little heavy for themselves. Not this bear. The more he eats, the happier he has become. And just with the pressure that they have applied across here, having the turrets down in the side lane, so you're making sure that no one can rotate easily, the vision that they have extended into the enemy jungle, NXI, with the help of his laners, can easily secure a second Rift Herald for themselves. They can bring this pressure into any of the lanes, and between Shermfire and Copy that are here in the mid lane, they are outnumbered by FlyQuest at this point. So all they have to do is continue to push up this wave so that they can get this pressure on to the turret. There is the Herald to finish it off. It should be able to get multiple charges for itself as well. So suddenly what was actually more scrappy game earlier on, all about the kills, and more about the objectives. But speaking of kills, here's the attempt from Kumo to go in, but it's the 1v2 currently. Dreams is here on the outskirts to try and rotate, but he wasn't there at the very moment alongside NXI. So that is one to fall over in the top side, but Copy ended up dying elsewhere. So one down on both sides. 6 kills for NXI at this point. Oh my goodness.
I think Kumo just got bored that the game is no longer playing around his side of the map. Watch Jhin. I'm pretty sure this was Jhin combo. Remember that what I was saying about Jhin comboing to the mid lane? Check it out. Let's see it, because I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yep. How do you deal with this? This is the nuisance that Jhin is as an AD, where out of nowhere you're like, oh yeah, I can take a little hit. Suddenly I'm instantly gibbed because now there's a CC ability coming out of nowhere. So great roam there out of Tomo, knowing what you can do as an AD to set up your other lanes. It's similar to what Ashe does, level 6, using the ultimate in the mid lane, but you can do it way more often with a Jhin and your Deadly Flourish.
That lockdown, and it's like you said, Crumbs, what do you even do in that moment? You queue a little bit and get kind of sad as Jhin completely keeps you oppressed. And this is just what we're starting to see from FlyQuest at this point, when they get those picks and then they completely convert that into some pressure on the map. Right now, all 3 Drakes of the game thus far have gone into the pocket of FlyQuest Academy, complete control of that bot side, which just becomes so much easier for them to do because of all of the outer turrets being eliminated over on the Cloud9 Academy red side. 2 of them down towards the mid lane, which just opens up the possibility for you to try and snowball into a team fight so that you can aggress towards that late game potential.
So I like what we're seeing here at a triple. He's not pushing this wave quickly because he doesn't have to. There's nothing going on in the map. If you pushed out, all you would do would be overextending himself. So he's slowly pushing this up, and it really makes sure that he doesn't push really too far up, and he'll just barely be out of range. Look at that. Ooh. Just such a great game sense, knowing that there was absolutely no need to do this. He could be in danger. That stony silence that we were mentioning, how it's always the calm before the storm. Well, he smells it. He's thinking, I really should not be this far out. I'll play it as safe as I have to, and rightly so. He survives, buys some time, and it lets FlyQuest get more mapping control on the top side of the map, setting up for a Baron and to close this game out.
Yeah, that whole control that they've had on the top side, and Darshan really not being able to go anywhere to affect the rest of the map. Those small moments like you saw where Triple was out of the range of the ultimate from Azir meant that that's another resource that you have expelled should you get into a point where you don't want to allow Cloud9 the opportunity to completely turn around a team fight to bring this game back into their favor. So just getting those small wins in different places at different times really do add up in the grand scheme of things for them to capitalize upon the lead that they have already been growing going. And here in the jungle is a place where they might be comfortable taking the fight. There's the knock up onto Schernfire. He's already been marked down for about 30% of his HP. Fine is Olaf, but he is also separated, using the Make It Rain to make sure that FlyQuest didn't entrench any further upon this. Yes, they have some wards, but there is still a quick rotation from the rest of the Cloud9 Academy team. Instead of going forward, they opt to go backwards towards the Baron, where they're starting to burn it down, but Kumo and Dreams have set themselves up into this brush. They know that Cloud9 Academy will be rotating from their jungle side, and patiently they wait. But it's both teams that are patient. Dreams starts to go for it. There's the long extended route directly onto Isles, and Rel just a couple more shots from death despite the heal. Triple ends up getting the credit for that one. The curtain call to go and whittle them down all the way from the Baron pit as they stick to the objective nonetheless. Schernfire and Copy have to be aware of this because they're warding in here, but Copy, despite getting the knockup, still decides to flash, ends up giving his life in the process. Schernfire, the next one to be burned down, and King is not enraged to affect any of this at all. Kumo and Dreams are staring him down with that mean mug to force him back under his turret, but that is an objective for FlyQuest. They secure the Baron, they secure the pressure that they have been blowing into all game. And Darshan, what are you doing, honey? There's 3 FlyQuest members ready with wings spread wide to close around you, and that is 3 down on the side of Cloud9 Academy. What can they do from here with the lone bot lane down in their base? All they're going to have to do is just give some space between them and Fly as they take down these turrets.
They are clean. FlyQuest does not hesitate when it comes to sealing this game against C9. They can still go for more here as Tomo doesn't have mana, but he's very healthy there. C9 doesn't have tools to re-engage there. And man, seeing how decisive they were. All right, clear out the vision. Great. Chunk out the support. Now we can blast come over to the Baron, start it. They have vision, doesn't matter. We know what we need to do. We can still tank it, turn. All right, you see the jungler, go after the important targets. They played it so well. They did all the right steps, and Cloud9 really couldn't do a whole lot out of that because of the disadvantage that they're in, not just from champ select, not just in gold, but from that terrible level 1. I think that is the place where they will just be pointing to all game long. That VOD will look at level 1 as the place where it all went downhill, but for FlyQuest, it's their entire game plan from that position. They have not hesitated in taking more advantages than what Cloud9 has given.
It's the kind of thing that's going to get you pretty darn excited if you're a FlyQuest Academy fan. One of the things them and some of the other teams can be plagued with is the fact that there is a lot of strong individual talent, but it takes time for that development and that level of control to come through too, and knowing when those win conditions are. And this has been a clean execution. Recognizing what the strengths are from Cloud9 Academy, doing the best to shut them down. Darshan being such a pivotal force for them. And now we're just directly on the turrets. There's the TP coming through too. Oh, and blasting down into the backline. Copy, you just got bursted, my friend. Triple has to go golden to avoid the rest of the damage from the Make It Rain. And Isles, he's down into the back, but he's going to get slapped upon by Dreams. King going right into the fountain, but the curtain has been called, and it will be dropping upon Cloud9 Academy soon. The ace to finish it off. The second turret goes down, and FlyQuest Academy bringing themselves 5-3 after a victory against the second-ranked team in LCS Academy. My, oh my, did FlyQuest fly.
It's gonna get really interesting in the Academy standings now because FlyQuest just comes off a really strong week. You took down 100 Thieves, who you were tied with, and now you took down Cloud9, who you're bringing back down from the top of the standings into a contestable zone. So this is a really good game out of them. Big mistake out of C9, but that you lost of a single mistake is something that neither Cloud9 can say and admit that that's how a game should be lost. And on the side of FlyQuest, well, that you won from a single mistake and you were able to grow that lead is a really positive thing because it never felt like Cloud9 found the way back. It was FlyQuest all the way.
And we're looking at parts of the Cloud9 Academy comp, thinking, okay, if they can get into a comfortable position, maybe they can bring it back. They do have a lot of level of control that we have seen in some of these games, but FlyQuest having that execution right from the start until the finish and sticking to their guns is what really brought them through here. And Crumbs, I think that those that have been tracking FlyQuest throughout the season thus far should be happy with what they have been witnessing.
Yeah, taking down Cloud9, no matter how it happens. No matter how it happens, whatever league it is, just taking down Cloud9 is a good feat. And seeing that you've got the members that were really fed, like NXI, didn't die, that's a really good sign. Seeing a lead that was grown and not thrown all game long is a great thing from a new jungler more than anything else, because that's something that so often junglers that come in from solo queue that are so used to being the sole carries will grow a lead but then fumble it here and there, and suddenly the game has now been given back to the enemy. That didn't happen with NXI. It was quite clean. Objectives, kills, back to objective games, back to bigger objectives, back to end the game. Good team fights. What else do you want?
That's what I'm saying. All good things that you can look forward to on the side of FlyQuest Academy, and we'll have to see what Cloud9 Academy can come up with next time. I do believe we are kicking to a break right now, and on the other side, we'll have more LCS Academy coming your way. Welcome back, everyone, to LCS Academy. Crumbs, see, I was getting all sweaty, and I thought it was because the way that game was going, and my air kicked off, actually, during a part of that. So I was like, FlyQuest was just turning it up so hot, it turned up my entire room by the way they were playing.
Wow, I'm envious. Like, where are you? I thought we were in similar parts of Los Angeles, because this is the opposite here. My room is ice cold now from that, because that was a chilling defeat. Seeing Vayne just do nothing is very scary and gives me just chills to my bones. It reminds me of the games I have not been able to dodge. I have lost many games this season because the client did not let me dodge. I'll just say that.
Fair enough, fair enough. But whether it was chilly or hot, that was definitely a game you do not want to miss. I think it's about time, though, Crumbs, for us to check in on our Samsung SSD Fast 5, where based on the different stat that we have per lane and per role, we get to track how these players are doing. And I don't think it's any surprise, Crumbs, that Haunter continues to dominate in the top lane with the fastest 100 CS, since that is something very characteristic of him, regardless of whatever league he's in.
Yeah, Hanser is dominating that, yet he doesn't have the largest discrepancy between first and second place, or even, I think, second and third here, because you've got Triple a whole minute behind Yasui in the fastest mythic item. Pretty big deal there. And then Surenfire at 5:14. Him and Bobby are really quick on the level 6, again, above Armao, but that is crazy fast. 5:14 level 6 is insane. Like, I had to go back to see what game that was, because I feel like we're gonna hit somebody in the under 5-minute category for the jungle. These guys keep breaking this record.
And of all of the different stats that we get here too, that jungle fastest to level 6 can be one of the most directly impactful on the game in terms of the pace of it. So when you see that 5-minute and 14-second conversion time, especially knowing that Surenfire is the one to bring out things like the Nocturne as well, a pick that he favors in solo queue that he brought with a different build here into Academy, and just thinking about the type of ults that come on through. But Armao, also hanging out on here, has had a lot of admirable performances on Team Liquid, though I feel like you can say that about everybody in this case. And kind of going over to the bot lane is where we really only see the changes there between the bot lane and the top lane. Andy Bendy made his name known on this list, though I believe there have been some shift-ups in the bot lane for 100 Thieves.
Yeah, I mean, your accolades will always be remembered in the Samsung Fast 5, so it's another incentive. If you're gonna just have a crazy standout game, it'll always linger out here until it gets broken. So the bot lane is one that is interesting, since there are other roles that they are guaranteed to get these golds in the AD, but with now the fasting Senna, you're always obviously mixing things up for what the support transformation and AD stats will look like.
I always do love trying to figure out which games a lot of these do come from, just because when even looking to Lorelo coming on to this list, who wasn't on the list last time, you think, well, there was a pretty dominating game for Dignitas where a lot of pressure was brought specifically to that top side with the help of the junglers. So you can't help but think, maybe that is where that kind of a change was coming from.
Hey, when there is a list, you always want to be on it. You never want to be off the list. You always want to be a part of it, just so that you can be involved in these readouts, or just anybody's always checking. I mean, I remember when I'm a fan, just growing up, seeing leagues like this, I'd always just go back, like, show me a list of all the players doing this. Oh, great. Here's a list of all the players, a list of all the games that went down. So I'm a big fan of that.
When you were a player, Crumbs, were you tracking a lot of the lists? I mean, it was probably a lot of Reddit lists and things like that, or were you just ignoring it?
Yeah, no, I mean, for other leagues, you just see, like, you go to the list of all the players that are, say, all the junglers. Like, great, okay, who are all the junglers in Korean leagues? Oh, okay, well, what are all they playing? And then you see, all right, okay, from this, these are the guys that win. And when you know nothing, that's kind of what you go off of when you're starting to get to know these players. So seeing these rankings for a lot of people might be the first time they encounter these players. So it is an introduction to players that might not be an orthodox way of knowing League.
Well, this was a good check-in for everybody. If you're curious as to who is coming to the top of the list for Samsung SSD Fast 5, always a pleasure to get to check in on. But you know, Crumbs, we'll just have to wait until next week and see what it's looking like then. We do have a game coming up soon, everybody. We're going to get ramped up for that, game number 4 of 5 of the day. So stay tuned for more LCS Academy.